He'll make it for sure. Now that's why I backed him on Tap Touch.
Hey, Luke!
Yes, Gene Simmons?
He's probably the best when it comes to this stuff!
Thanks, Gene.
You've got the touch! You got the touch, you got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.
Hoops Heaven proudly brings to you Basketball Hustle.
Ellis fumbled the ball. 2 on the shot clock. Throws up a prayer. Yes! As he was falling to the ground, it's a 3. He shot it literally from the hip.
Definitely a highlight.
Here come the Billikens. 4 on 2. McCall. Ellis. Left corner.
We're missing out.
Bang! From way down under. Cody Ellis. Reddick brings low out away from the basket. Stolen away by Cody Ellis. One man to beat. To the hole. He's fouled. Layup. Good. Whistle foul. Count the basket.
Ellis for the reverse. Through fingertips. What a move. Ellis drops in a bomb. I love seeing Cody Ellis coming out feeling good.
Ellis. Cody Ellis. Ellis. Pull up jumper. Cody Ellis. Bang. Cody Ellis. Can he stand and deliver? Cody Ellis.
Now it's time for another episode of Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle.
Hello and welcome to Hoops Heaven's Basketball Hustle for another week. I'm back with my regular co-host and we finally got some movement of the Illawarra Hawks for you to talk about, Cody. So we'll talk about the departure of Jacob Jackomas. It's never fun when a coach loses his job. We never like people losing their jobs, but it might be just the thing that the Hawks need to give them a bit of a boost and to not be the same old Hawks anymore. So we'll get to that on this week's show. That'll be a big talking point. The short-handed Melbourne United just continue to win. I'm fascinated to get your thoughts on how they won that game against the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix. The Sydney Kings strung together a couple of massive runs to overcome the Brisbane Bullets. The Perth Wildcats, their momentum's now building, and I feel like a lot of the credit goes to the changes that they've made, shortened the rotation, and finding a way to get Bryce Cotton some easier looks. Injuries continuing to mount a little bit for the Taipans and the Bullets, but they're still competing. I want to find out what's wrong with the New Zealand Breakers, and we've got Daniel Johnson returning to Adelaide this Friday night, Cody. So that's a lot to get through. We're here thanks to Hoops 7 and Tab Touch. But Cody Ellis, good to have you back.
Mate, good to be back, and thanks for Simon for filling in last week again for me. And if you guys haven't gone and had a listen to that, please do, because it's, again, another really good episode from a coach that is fairly fresh out of the league, and his insights are unbelievable. So it was a lot of fun to listen to that last week. Yeah,
what I enjoy is that he's a head coach. He's been a head coach for the last 4 years, and he's spent his life in the NBL, but he's so fresh out of the game. So his insights are pretty cutting edge, and I feel like he's talked a little bit about how if you're too long out of the game, you probably can't get back into it. So I feel like if he's going to get back into the NBL, it'll be pretty quickly as well. So he's keeping an eye on things very quickly. Did you learn much from him? What stood out from some of the insights he gave?
Oh, look, I think just...
Or was it nice to have him confirm some of your thoughts on things too?
Yeah, look, always nice for him to confirm some of my thoughts. Just proves that I'm not going too crazy with some of these thoughts that I have. But no, look, the whole episode was great. I think obviously the TV coverage stuff was fairly relevant right now, and I don't think it got a whole lot better over the weekend, unfortunately.
No.
No, look, I think that, like you mentioned, if you're out of the league for too long, it's hard to crack back in, but maybe there's a job on the line coming up around the corner, hopefully, and it'll be interesting to see what happens.
Well, let's get straight to it. Actually, before I do, we're short on a third co-host right now as well, so... How disappointed were you when you got here today, Cody, and Elvis wasn't here?
Oh, mate, it was, very upsetting. Didn't have the little fella running up and wanting pats and saying g'day. So, it's going to be fairly quiet in the background for you guys this week.
Yes, very quiet. Also, I was thinking, if Lauren ever came with you when we come to the studio here just to hang out with Elvis, how heartbroken would she be if she found out that Elvis wasn't here for that day?
Oh, yeah, she'd probably walk home, I reckon.
Hello to Lauren as well, so... Fascinated. Is she still a fan of this show? Does she still tune in to listen, or does she get enough of your basketball thoughts at home that she needs a break from it?
No, she still tunes in every week. She works the night shift at Doolittle, so she always has it on when she's working and always nitpicks and tells me what I've spoken about wrong. And she's still an avid listener.
Fantastic. All right, then, let's get down to business. Let's get straight to the Illawarra Hawks, Cody. You made a comment on our last show that you thought that Jacob Jackomas' job might be in a little bit of jeopardy. When we found out on Tuesday this week that the Hawks and he had parted company, they've gone 5-32 in his one season and a little bit in charge. What was your reaction?
Look, not overly surprised. Kind of sucks that I didn't get to talk about it last week.
Yes.
Because, I thought it was definitely coming. And look, I think the Hawks have probably done the right thing and pulled the trigger on that. And I think it's probably best for both parties. Watching Jacob on the sidelines, he just constantly seems on edge. We've spoken about that a lot. And, that boils over into the playing group too. And look, it's no fun leading from the front like that and, not getting the results that you want. And especially with Illawarra, it's such a small town market and it's pivotal that you have the support of the fans and when you're not winning it's hard to get that. So, look, not overly surprised by it, but it's going to be interesting to see how Tatum takes over.
Yeah, it will be. I don't want to pile on Jacob because I think he's a great basketball mind.
Absolutely
and he's a really good person. So in my dealings with him, he's been fantastic from the moment he got the job. But at the same time, when you looked at him and you put yourself in your playing shoes, did he seem like the sort of coach you would have wanted to play for?
Oh, look, it's hard to say looking from the outside in, right? You've got to be some kind of sicko to be able to be a head coach and be successful at it, right? So, look, he's obviously an unbelievable basketball mind. I mean, when you spend that long around a guy like Gorge, it forces you to become that.
Well, let's be honest, he's probably the mastermind between a lot of Gorgin's best teams, but there is a big difference between coming up with a plan but then actually being able to coach a team, isn't there?
Oh, very much so. It's such a different ball game being even first assistant compared to the head coach. You've got all the pressures in the world as a head coach. You can throw different things out there if you're the assistants and you've got no pressure of it coming back and being like, well, that's your fault, because it's like, well, you're not the one that pulled the trigger on it. And so look, it obviously sucks for him, but I just don't think it was the right place for him. So be interesting to see what he does going forward and hopefully finds his feet somewhere.
At the same time, from his point of view, I guess when you're an assistant for so long, do you just want to find out if you can be a head coach or not? And maybe he's worked out that he might not want to be a head coach. It might be the best thing for him to not be moving forward and he might be able to work in other areas or he might want to be a head coach somewhere else. But from his point of view, do you just want to find out one way or the other?
Definitely. Yeah, you spend so long as an assistant and I'm sure you'd always wonder, can I do it leading from the front? And, we saw it with Simon.
Yep.
He was an assistant for a while and then took over the Phoenix and obviously with all the injury struggles they had, but he was super successful at it.
So close to a championship.
Yeah, exactly.
In that second season too.
Yeah, exactly. And pretty much every year had the team and the everything to go with it to win a championship, just got unlucky.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen for everyone. Not everyone's cut out to be a coach, and that's, not a negative on anyone. It's just what it is, So yeah, look, I think he's one of those guys that will be an unbelievable assistant, but maybe not a head coach. And it is what it is, right?
Yeah.
It's, again, no negative on anyone. It's just part of it.
As a playing group, what's it like mid-season going through a coaching change? What's it? I can't remember if you've actually been through it, but what would it be like if you haven't been through it yourself?
Depends if you count the last game of the season, my first year at Sydney.
Yeah, well, that's right.
Oh, it's got to be tough, right? And not really it's like in between a season, but it was in college. We kind of had a bit of a transfer of coaches between my junior and senior year. It's a tough one, right? Because it depends on the group. It really depends on the group, and it's going to be hard to completely change what you want to do, right? I think you can certainly tweak things. I think you can certainly put in different. If you wanted to change up, what plays you're running and what systems you're running and all that sort of stuff, I'm sure you could do that. But there's going to be growing pains with that. right? Because that's what preseason's for, is implementing all that.
Absolutely.
You know, I think, and we'll talk about it later, but Melbourne United, for instance, you know, we've seen that
their system works.
Almost
no matter who's out there.
Doesn't matter, right? He's put a system together and everyone buys into it. And that's what makes teams successful. We haven't seen that from the Hawks right now. Even the past couple of years, it just doesn't seem like they're staying true to their systems or what systems are in place for them. So, look, it's a tough job for Tatum coming in and
yes.
to take over the team right now. But, I mean, they're 2-7. You know, it's one of those things that I feel like the season's pretty much written off for them already with how good, you know, the top 6 or 7 teams are.
You can almost only afford probably somewhere between 10 and 12 losses.
Yeah, I think so.
so they've already got 7.
Yeah, but it's a perfect time to kind of experiment with stuff, I think, and see what's going to happen and see what you can get out of the younger guys and play around with Robinson and Harvey a bit and see what you can do and see if you can make them successful. And yeah, it's going to be an interesting couple of weeks moving forward.
Well, I want to talk to you about Justin Robinson and Tyler Harvey. Simon talked about them last week about how they're two such similar players and very similar skill sets. They're both great scorers. They both love to shoot. They both love to have the ball in their hands. They don't necessarily like to give the ball up too much. Neither of them are great defensively. That's putting it probably kindly.
Yeah, very.
but I mean, they're great offensive players. So, I mean, they can put points on the board, but they're not playing well right now. No. Are they too similar to have on the same team? And beyond that, whose fault is it for having such similar imports?
Yeah, well, I mean, they're an identical player, really. I mean, right down to the point where they're both lefties. Like it's pretty crazy. So, and look, I cannot remember who it was that signed Robinson. I can't remember if it was before Jacob was appointed head coach or what happened. But you've really got to look at that, especially when Harvey came out and he had that unbelievable first year, and it was like, oh, he's going to be like MVP candidate type stuff. And then, you know, you sign him for multiple years and, you know, you basically hand the keys over to him. And then I don't see the point in going and signing as good as Robinson, you know, was in that first part when they signed him. Why would you go and sign pretty much an identical player? You know, you need to find pieces around him. So, again, I can't remember who it was, whether it was Jacob or if it was just the higher-ups at the Hawks that signed Robinson. But I don't think it was a good signing. It is tough, but it is what it is.
So Jacob tried something different against the Taipans, and he brought Harvey off the bench, and we wanted him to be that, to take the pressure off a little bit, and hopefully he can come on and be a spark, and also, I guess, be the leader of the second unit, and also let Robinson have more responsibility. But it didn't work because it was a damn ugly game in general. But those two guys, they combined in the end for 22 points. They shot 9 of 29, and they went 2 of 14 from 3. Some things I mean, the coach can't coach you to shoot and play like that, can he?
No. And part of the responsibility is on them, but part of it is also, and we've seen this with the Cats, they've kind of been put in similar situations to Bryce, where all those shots, so 9 for 29 is pretty bad from your two probably main scorers, really, apart from Clark. But their shots are either contested or, you know, late shot clock, not really out of any set. It's just always a forced one. So your percentage is going to plummet when that kind of stuff happens. And we saw it with one of the best players to ever freaking grace the league, and Bryce.
And we'll get to it shortly, but we saw what happens when Bryce has a little bit less pressure on him and what he can do.
Exactly. So, look, I think it's a bit of a double-edged sword in that Robinson and Harvey have to be better. I mean, point blank, they have to be better for that team to do anything, right? But they've also got to be put in the right situations to be able to do that. And again, playing them together is pretty tough to do because, you know, they both want the ball in their hands. Right? They both want it in their hands. They need it in their hands to be successful, you know. So, I think it's going to be interesting to see, again, you know, what Tatum puts in and how he tries to get the best out of these guys.
Or do they stick with them? Do they make a change personnel-wise? Or is there a point when you're 2-7?
I don't think there's a point when you're 2-7. I think you try and get the best out of everyone at the moment. And, I mean, unless you let one of them go and let the young boys come in and try their hand at it. But I don't really see a point of bringing anyone new in.
Last one on the Hawks. Justin Tatum coming in as coach, the dad of Jason Tatum, the Celtics superstar. How tough of a situation is this? He doesn't really understand the league because he's new to it. He hasn't got a lot of experience as a head coach, and now he's walking into a situation where he needs to fire up a team that's really struggling. How's he going to go?
Oh, free swing.
Yeah.
It's a free swing.
Yeah.
And look, you're right. He's been in the league for 5 minutes, as an assistant, and no coaching history, especially at a higher level. So to have to do it especially in this league, I mean, that's tough. But what have you got to lose? Really, you don't have much to lose at all. Again, 2-7, struggling, can't play defense right now, can't play offense right now. So try fire him up, see what you can do. I think it's probably going to be a bit relieving from some of the players, I assume, to maybe have a bit of freedom, go out and just play. So it's a tough situation, but I do think it's a 100% a free swing.
I said that was the last question, but one more popped into my head. Are you surprised that there's so much talk around people thinking that there's a possibility of Trevor Gleeson or Brian Goorjian coming in? I can't imagine either of them wanting to do it mid-season. At the end of the season, they might sit down and think about it seriously if they want to take on the job. But mid-season, a coach like that is not going to want to come in, is he?
Absolutely not. And, we've seen it with Trev. If he takes up a job, then he stops getting paid from the Raptors, and that's not going to happen. He's sitting back doing the commentary and getting some family time. Yeah. So that's not. Gorge, I don't think we're going to see again. Anyway, no. I think he's done. I think he pretty much admitted that when he let Jacob take over the reins. Really,
he did. Yeah.
And again, there's no point in bringing them in mid-season, and I don't think they'd want to take over mid-season anyway. No. So. Look, it's going to be a big off-season for them, even though, we're a third of the way through the year. It's looking a long way ahead, but be pointless, really.
Okay, let's move on from the Hawks because it's tough. I'm sure last one on them. Is it tough as a former player to see your club struggling?
Yeah, it is, definitely. It's something that, those fans are usually so supportive, and they deserve good content on the floor. And
in fairness, I don't think they've turned on their team. No, they've supported them.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, look, it's frustrating, right? Because it's a little market team. It's tough to draw, the big names there, and part of playing for that team is putting everything out on the floor, right, and playing hard. And I don't think we're quite seeing that from the playing group. Which is frustrating to see. But no, look, I think the Hawks faithful deserve a good product on the floor, and hopefully Justin can turn it around a bit for him.
Now, you alluded to one of your former coaches before, and it jogged my memory about something with Shane Hill, yes. Cody. Didn't get a chance to talk to you about it, but a couple of weeks ago, some keen eyes noticed that he's no longer in the rafters at Kudos Bank Arena. I asked Damien Martin about it because he was there that day, and he didn't notice it in the building, but when I told him, he was quite shocked and felt like it was probably an overreaction just because you've had a falling out with the club. Yep. You've still been a champion player, and it's not like he's criminal charges or anything against him. As someone who was played under Hammer, what's your reaction knowing that the fallout's been that significant with the Kings?
I was pretty surprised. It was, when I first saw it and noticed that it was... I was actually pretty shocked at it because, he's done a lot for that club. He was a heck of a player for them and obviously led them to chips. And there was no real rhyme or reason to it. Apparently it was asked and the Kings kind of just said no comment. And it was kind of left at that. So, look, obviously there's some stuff going on behind the scenes with Hammer and the Flames. Yeah. But, I'm a bit dumbfounded as to why they would go that far and pull his banner down and all that with up with the other legends of the club.
Well, you're in a good position to answer this. How would you feel if you walked into RAC Arena and your dad's number was no longer up there?
Yeah, it'd be pretty shocking. Yeah. It'd be pretty surprising, and it's a big time honour to be hung in the rafters somewhere and to just kind of have it pulled down and.
I'm also not suggesting your dad would ever do anything to make that happen.
No, that's all good. That's all good. But it's pretty shocking and interesting to. I haven't noticed anything since, or nothing's been spoken about since, but I'd assume it's still not hanging up there.
No, I can't imagine them putting it back up because that draws attention to it even
more
further.
so.
All right, Cody, that's the first segment down. That's some serious talk. Let's talk about some more positive things about especially Melbourne and Perth and Sydney when we come back, and we'll hear from Tap Touch.
Sounds good.
He'll make it for sure. That's why I backed him on Tap Touch.
You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Imagine what you could be buying instead.
Okay, back on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. I'm here with Cody Ellis. Let's go to Melbourne United, Cody.
Yep.
I don't think anyone gave them much of a chance in their throwdown on Sunday. They didn't have Matthew Dellavedova, didn't have Luke Travers, didn't have Ian Clark. I think you can say that they're certainly within their top 5 most important players. Mm-hmm. And they were up against a Southeast Melbourne Phoenix team with a point to prove and in good form and looking to make a statement. It was their home game. They'd sold it out. Everything was pointing towards a Phoenix victory. How did Melbourne manage to pull this win off?
Well, we mentioned it in the previous segment. You know, their systems in place, or the systems they have in place are very sound, right? And it doesn't matter who comes in, they play their role, they do what is needed of the team, right? So with Delhi out, with LT out, with Clark out, I mean, that's some big names out. Like, that is unbelievable. I remember sitting down watching the game and then talking about Delhi and stuff like that and how he was out. And I was just, goodness me, like they're going to really struggle here. And they didn't, not at all. Prove me wrong. And they came out and they played really good basketball. And they had some young guys come in. Flynn Cameron was unbelievable. He was great. He just took that opportunity and ran with it. And I mean, you know, Chris Goulding doing Goulding things. And I think it was the fourth quarter late where he hit one like a step just inside the half-court circle that never looked like missing. It was cash, and it was just, they're a winning culture, and they just found a way, even with the players out. And I think we spoke about at the start of the season, Melbourne's biggest strength is their depth. And I think they really flexed that muscle against the Phoenix.
Yeah, I mean, it's that sort of game where you realise why you've got such depth, isn't it? Because, I mean, they bring Rob Lowe back in, and he has a fantastic game because Huck Porty was a virtual non-factor as well, so he basically didn't play either because he was still well short of 100%. But then, like you mentioned, Flynn Cameron, because even Shea Ellie got in foul trouble, so Flynn had to play a massive role, and he's a rookie, and you know, some games he doesn't play at all, but he comes in and does what he did. Kyle Bowen, his numbers didn't stand out, but just his presence out there defensively was really good. Even Campbell Blob came in for a couple of minutes, and he's probably 14th man on their roster. He comes in and has an impact. Why does Melbourne have such a good system? What does it come down to?
Well, it's, you know, the coaching staff and Dean that has implemented that through pre-season and preaching that once you get an opportunity, because they've got an older core group, right? Apart from probably, you know, LT and Huck Porty, you know.
And Flynn. Well, I guess Flynn's not really part of that normal rotation.
Not really. But, you know, Shea's getting on and he's injury prone. Delhi's getting on, he's injury prone. Goulding's getting on, he's not as injury prone at all, but he's getting on. He's played a ton of games in this league. And it's one of those things that, you know, he's probably preached to the young guys, look, you're going to get opportunities. Once you get them, you've got to be able to take them and run with them, right? Because if not, we've got someone else that's going to step up and take. And, you know, I think that's part of Dean and his coaching staff's philosophy of pumping up the tires of those young guys and, you know, instilling confidence in them. And look, it does come from the leadership group as well in the playing group. You know, guys like Goulding and Clark and Delhi, again, same thing, pumping the tires up of the young guys and hyping them up when they do something good and that kind of thing, but also holding them accountable when they mess up. So, you know, I think they've ticked all the right boxes in terms of that, and I mean, it's really showing. And to have guys that many key players out and still be able to come up and get a win, I say on the road, but you know, not really.
No,
against another, you know, bit of a title contender is massive, and it really sends a statement.
On the other side of the fence, how disappointing of a loss for the Phoenix was it?
Yeah, they let one slip. For sure, they let one slip, and it was just kind of a couple minute spurts here and there that they really, I guess, took the foot off and, you know, let Melbourne take advantage of bits and pieces throughout the game. But yeah, look, that's one that they're probably going to look back on being disappointed that they lost that one, because that I don't think that they're that kind of team that would buy into, they've got these guys out, this should just be an automatic win. They're too much of a veteran squad, from their main players, and that wouldn't have gone through the team, I wouldn't think. But yeah, look, definitely a missed opportunity for them.
We'll talk a bit more about him later when we get to our preview, but what was your reaction when you saw Daniel Johnson in a Southeast Melbourne Phoenix uniform?
Very, very strange. It was very strange. But no, look, I think, and again, a tough one for DJ, who had been there for half a week and got thrown out there because, Biggs got in foul trouble again and then kind of had to finish the game off. And, it's going to take him time to get back into the rhythm of playing. So I've said it multiple times on this show over the past couple of years, like there's a big difference between being in shape and being in game shape. And it's going to take him a few games. Apparently he's in great form and he hasn't lost a beat or anything like that at practice, which, I mean, is all positive signs. But it is going to take him a few games to really get back into a rhythm.
Plus in a new system.
Well, that's it. And to figure out where he fits in that system. And look, once that happens, I think, obviously, depending on how long Jack's out for, I think he'll be a massive, massive key for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's get to the Perth Wildcats, Cody. Last time we did a show 2 weeks ago, we were waiting to see if it was just a one-off change in momentum or if they could actually build on this and put some good form together. They now, since that horrible Brisbane game, they haven't lost. And, I think the changes that, John Riley's made, we talked about how in that Brisbane game, every decision he made virtually we probably thought was the wrong one. But since then, he's mixed things up and full credit to him. So Jesse Wagstaff, again, played massive minutes, and you've talked about it a lot. On a team with Bryce, he needs teammates that are willing to sacrifice and help him out a little bit, set a screen for him. Their chemistry is amazing. Some of the passes that Jesse sends to Bryce puts him in a position where nobody else can put him. So somebody that can just make things easier. But again, in this game against New Zealand, they were plus 13 in Jesse's 20 minutes. Hiram Harris, they were plus 12 and he only played 14 minutes. And then Christian Doolittle, they were plus 19 and he played all but 2 minutes and 15 of the entire game. So I think relying more on those three guys that are the hustle guys, the guys that do the little things, the guys that help Keanu Pinder and Bryce Cotton go to work and score, I think that's been the biggest change.
Oh, it has. And look, full credit to him. I think he's shortened his roster, which he did last year, but didn't do it properly, right? This year he's shortened it and actually changed up what they were doing, right? So bringing Hiram on into the starting five, bringing Jesse in for multiple minutes, and it says a lot for being able to play together with Jesse and Bryce, and just that connection they've had over the past few years. And you can see it as soon as those two are in pick and rolls or something good's going to happen. Whether Bryce is going to get an open bucket or he's going to hit Jesse on a little roll or a pop or something like that. Like they just work so well together, and that doesn't just happen overnight. That's something that they've built over the past couple of years. So I think being able to use that has been huge. I think Doolittle's been unbelievable for him, and I really, really like watching him play. And I think doesn't always stand out on the score sheet. I mean, 8, 11, 4, and 2 is pretty good stat line. But it's nothing that really jumps out at you because, I mean, usually the things that jump out at you are the points, right? And Bryce having 37, that's what jumps out on the score sheet. But Doolittle does all the little things, and I think he's probably their best defender. He's got that size. He's smart. He's able to switch onto the smaller guys, and he's able to guard 1 through 5. He's strong enough and smart enough to be able to guard the bigs, and I think he's been huge for him. And playing him all but 2 and a bit minutes is something that I think probably is going to happen for the rest of the season. And if they're going to be successful, that's going to happen for the rest of the season. Hiram Harris doing his thing. I was pretty surprised he wasn't in late.
I think it was just because Jesse was playing so well.
Yeah, no, I think so too. So he's going to come in and do what he does. And he's been great for them. He just the hustle plays and gets after O boards and dives on the floor and will be chippy and go shoulder someone. and that's something that Jesse does as well, right? So, those guys have been unbelievable for him. I think Usher with a -3 in 17 and a half minutes, 4 of 12, 9 points. Like that's...
And again, some really bad shots.
Just some terrible shots, right? He's just, I think I said it a couple of weeks ago, I think he's trying too hard to become part of the offense and not letting it come to him. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him and if he slowly falls out of the rotation, or if he figures it out, and he's going to earn more minutes playing defense. Play some defense, don't take bad shots. It's pretty much all he needs to do. Yeah, look, they've really turned it around, and I think that they've still got a bit of a ways to go, obviously, but I mean it's been a big couple of weeks for them, and it's something that needed to happen, especially here in Perth. Obviously, that loss to Brisbane really set off the Red Army, and I think turning it around and doing what they're doing now is a lot more like Wildcats basketball.
With Bryce, is it as simple as things are a little bit easier for him now, and he's being able to be the Bryce that we know? Is it as simple as that? Because we talked about how he's getting everything he was doing in the first part of the season was under such pressure. Even when he got a shot, it was so contested and such physical pressure. He was exhausted and he was getting no help. So there was no gap between him and his defenders. Especially in this game against New Zealand, I felt like he was virtually playing a solo game. There was no defensive pressure that he came up against at all. That's a problem for the Breakers. But is it as simple as just Bryce having a little bit more freedom?
Well, I think it's kind of twofold in that, yeah, he definitely does have a lot more freedom, but that is because you've got guys like Jesse and Hiram playing. Yeah. Two guys that couldn't care less if they don't get a shot for the game.
And right? Doolittle too, to be honest.
Doolittle very much the same. Yeah. But I think, especially Hiram Harris, who starts the game off, right? That's where you need to get Bryce going to start the game. Get him some early touches, get him some early buckets, some easy ones, and then all of a sudden the floodgates are open and it's nearly impossible to stop him. Go lay his man out. Even if you go out and set an illegal screen on his man in the first play, right? Doesn't matter. It's going to send a message, right? And that's the stuff that Hiram does and the stuff that Jesse does.
We talked in the first part of the season, they were so easy to play against. Yeah. Suddenly they're a bit harder to play against with those guys.
Well, yeah, these guys coming in, they're setting screens. They're kind of the enforcers, right? I think Keanu sets decent screens, but he's still not setting them to the level of Hiram and Jesse, right? Saar comes in, is still not afraid of contact, but because he's so big and he hasn't filled out properly yet, it's harder to really lay out a guard when you're that size, right? And he's still young; he hasn't really learnt that kind of a thing properly yet. But these guys coming out setting decent screens for him, not just letting the defender slip under or fight over, and it's leading to Bryce getting open. And he's a different player when he's getting those few early easy ones, because once he gets going, it's virtually impossible to stop him.
The team they played against, the New Zealand Breakers, something just doesn't feel right about this Breakers group this season. I know they've got a lot of excuses. They've been through a lot already in the first 7 weeks. They've travelled around the world and they've had the worst travel schedule of anybody. They lost Justinian Jessup. They've had to replace him, and they're still without Zylan Cheatham. So they've got excuses, but some things don't excuse a lack of effort. I just didn't see a lot of effort in their game against the Wildcats.
No, they just kind of rolled over and just let whatever the Wildcats threw at them happen. And it's pretty interesting to be watching them play right now, because we spoke last year how they were the team that got the imports right. 1, 2, and 3. Got all 3 of them absolutely right. And we thought that they'd be signing at least 2 of them coming into this season, and they went clean slate and signed 3 brand new imports. Obviously, losing Cheatham sucks. That's awful, because I think he was starting to really find a bit of a groove. Him and Will were starting to work pretty well together. Losing Jessup for the season, brutal, right? But you're right. I think there is a lack of effort there, and it's almost like the playing group gets frustrated and flustered and is kind of scared to make a mistake, because Modi is constantly on them, right? And you see it on the sideline. Doesn't matter what happens, he's throwing his hands in the air and he's throwing his head back and out of frustration. And look, he's one of those coaches that has unbelievable relationships with the players off the court, so that those kind of things don't affect you as much when you're playing, right? Because it's nothing personal, obviously. It's just trying to win. But you can go too far with that. And right now, everyone kind of seems to be a bit on edge. We're not saying this. We're not seeing the same Will McDowell White right now. He's been given the keys and just kind of has not been the same that we saw at the end of last season, where he was,
he was one of the best players in the league.
He was, hands down. Look, I think that does have to do with the players he had around him too. So
is the ball out of his hands too much now with Jackson Cartwright, as good as he is on his own?
Yeah, I think it is. But, and again, that's, goes down to recruiting. And, when you've got a guy like Jackson Cartwright available and, you want to pick up talent, you've also got to pick up talent, the right talent for your group. So it's tough. But it is. It's not in his hands. It's not in Will's hands as much as it was at the end of last year. Look, they've got a lot to fix. Obviously, they've had some frustrations with travel schedule, injuries, and all that sort of stuff. But it gets to a point where, especially now, where it's almost to the point where the season's a write-off now.
Oh, yeah.
And you can't keep making excuses.
It's tough to get back from 2-6, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. And, a couple big weeks ahead. And just games they can't afford to drop. And they have to start finding a way to win and finding a way to close games out.
They can't afford to lose to the Hawks, can they?
No, they can't. But, who knows what's going to happen there.
It's interesting with Modi. Like you touched on, he gets along great with his players, and his players understand that everything as hard as he drives them is coming from a good place because it's for the better of the team, and he genuinely does care about them. But I guess during the pressure of a game, sometimes that can be misdirected a little bit. And I feel like you've got to understand your players that you're talking to at times, and I feel like let's focus on the imports. The guys he had last year, I feel like Harden, Brantley, and Brown all loved having a coach riding them that hard, and they all thrived when they had a coach riding them so hard, and that helped get the best out of them. Mm-hmm. I don't get the feeling that Anthony Lamb necessarily likes being screamed at. I don't feel like Jackson Cartwright necessarily likes that. Is it sometimes about understanding your players as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think Lamb especially, I think we've seen, it might have been last weekend, where he was having a really good game and he was kind of the only one really scoring for them. Yes. And I think it got to the last few minutes of the game and, he did something and he tried to maybe force a shot and then, Modi really got on him. And you could see his head pretty much drop or just,
I think there was a game where they almost came back from the dead against the Phoenix.
Actually that might have been it. And it was all off the back of him and what he was doing on the offensive end. They were getting stops and running, but he was the one putting the ball in the hole for them. And no, you know what it was? He scored on back-to-backs, possessions, and then didn't touch the ball for 2 or 3 possessions, and you could see him get flustered. And then that's when I think Modi called him out and told him play within the system, blah, blah, blah. Obviously didn't really hear what was said, but, you can kind of imagine. You could see him kind of get frustrated and drop his head a little bit. Then I think on the next possession, he might have forced a bad one, and then there was a timeout, and then you could see him kind of pull him aside and go off with him a little bit. And I get it, but when you got a guy like that, especially like Lamb, who was a key part of the Warriors last year, played big minutes for them.
He could be the best pure scorer we've got in this league right now.
Yeah, I think so. You got to give him a bit of free reign, a little bit. Obviously you want to play in your system, but you've got to give him that little bit if you've got a player of that talent. So it's that fine line, and I think he's still trying to figure out his team as well. They've had a crazy schedule, and they came back from the States and then had to go straight to Melbourne, and then came back and then had a game, and then they were back to Melbourne, and then had a home game, but it wasn't in Auckland; it was in Christchurch, and then it was so. Look, they've had a lot not go right for them, but like I said, you get to a point where you can't let those excuses creep in because you're now 2-6, and you've got to turn it around straight away.
Let's talk about the last game of the round on Sunday. Actually, let me get your thoughts. The 2 games on Saturday, Cody, we saw the Taipans and the Hawks, and they seemed to bring the worst out of each other. Yes. Then we saw Adelaide and Tasmania not necessarily put on a great spectacle. So it was almost as bad as it gets on Saturday. But the 2 games on Sunday, we started with the throwdown that we've talked about, but then the Kings and the Bullets put on a great show as well. It was almost the best and worst in the space of 24 hours.
Oh, Saturday I was pulling my hair out. It was so tough to watch. It was just, it wasn't great. And, I sent you a message and we were talking about it, just how tough it is. And I'm not sure how many people, watch games outside of probably their own team. I don't know how much that is, or if it's kind of just us that are the basketball junkies that watch all the games, but
they weren't great for the neutrals, were they?
Well, no, they weren't. And then come Sunday, and it's complete opposite. You know, both those games were awesome to watch. They were high intensity. You know, lots of fun, and I mean, it is tough because, you know, on the Sunday you've got 4 of the better teams in the league playing. On the Saturday, bar probably Tassie, 3 of probably the worst teams.
Especially Cairns when they're not at full strength.
No, they're not. And that's another conversation that we're in about. But no, look, Tassie's a bit all over the shop right now, and I'm hoping that this round is a bit more exciting and fun to watch.
Let's talk about the Kings and the Bullets. I feel like Brisbane were the better team for probably at least 30 minutes of this game, and they did it without Shannon Scott still, and they lost Tyrell Harrison during the game, who's been a massive piece for them. Yeah. And then they lost Aaron Baines for the last 3 minutes when he fouled out. But they were in control at 2 different points of the game. So just before halftime, they were leading by 14, but then Sydney goes on an 18-0 run either side of halftime. And then with a bit over 3 minutes to go, the Bullets were in control, leading by 6, and then all of a sudden, the Kings go on a 15-0 run. 2 things. Did the Bullets miss a great opportunity? But is this what makes the Kings so good? Because they can just blow the game apart in such quick spurts.
Yeah, and both, really. I think, again, this is like the Phoenix had, you know, a game that they'll look back on and say, that's a bit of a missed opportunity for us. You know, that's one that we probably should have won. But it is. It's what the Kings do. You know, they're loaded with talent. They can get out and run. They shoot the 3 ball a lot. Yes. And they've got a team poised to be able to go on these 10, 12, 15, 18 point runs in the space of a couple minutes. Yeah. You know, you could be, you know, up 5 or 6, and then all of a sudden 2 minutes later you feel the momentum starting to shift, and you look up and you're down 12. You know, it's something that's made the Kings good for the past couple of years, and it's a credit to the coaching staff of how similar they play.
Well, we saw the last 5 minutes of the game 5 of the grand final series.
Yep. Yeah, exactly the same thing, right? And the fact that you've kind of had a bit of an overhaul of players and coaches, and they're still doing what they've done that's made them successful the past couple of years is pretty cool to see. Bit of a both situation there in, Brizzy let one slip, but this is what the Kings do, and they've got the players to be able to do that, and Adams was
took
as
over.
always.
Took over. Should the Bullets be frustrated they're not on a 5-game winning streak? Yes. Because they won those 3 games straight, then they could have beaten Tasmania at the buzzer in that crazy last 2 minutes of that game, and then they could have won this game. I mean, I guess you're never unlucky because you make your own luck, but they could so easily be on a 5-game winning streak right now.
They're right there. They are right there, and I'm sure the playing group and, you know, Justin and his staff are probably a bit frustrated at the fact that they're not on that 5-game winning streak. But they're so close. They're so close to being a real powerhouse in the league and a team that is going to push for the finals. This is where I saw this team at the start of the season. This is where I thought they'd be at.
I think right now you have to expect them to make at least the top 6.
You'd think so. And look, they're fun to watch. I really enjoy watching them. I think, you know, hopefully Ty is all good, and he's been unbelievable for them this year. Rocco and Stints has been great for them. Bainesy's come back, and I think he's been really good. Yep. He's come in, he hasn't tried to do too much. He rolls down, he bees the beast he is, and tries to get those seals and that little lefty hook that he's got. And I mean, he's hit a couple pick and pop threes, but he hasn't lived and died by the 3 like he did last year. He's a monster on the boards. Like, hasn't been coming up with them. I think he only had 1 or 2 rebounds the other night, but he's right there, and just his presence there is big for them. So I think he's come back from his suspension and been really good for them. You know, Sobes has been Sobes. He's been one of the best scorers in the league, and Gordo and McDaniel have just been unbelievable, leading the group, but, you know, leading them on defense. And I think that's where they've been successful. You know, if you've got guys like that, and look, Sobes is not a terrible defender by any stretch of the imagination either. You know, he's pretty good on that end because he's athletic and he's smart. Yeah. You know, you force him down low, then you got 3 guys over 7 foot sitting in the paint.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look, they're
got Bannon too as a rookie. He's been fantastic.
He's been unbelievable for them, right? That kind of hard-nosed, and he was kind of compared to Nick Kay earlier in the season, and obviously that's some big shoes to fill where Nick came from. But when he first came into the league, it's pretty much exactly how he played. So, you know, Smith's shooting the ball well when he gets time because far out, that's a slow jump shot. Goodness gracious. But it's money. When he gets time, that's cash. He doesn't miss when he's wide open.
He wouldn't get all the shots off in a 3-point shootout, would he?
No, he wouldn't. He'd get to the top rack, I reckon. I don't reckon he'd even get 3/4 of the way around. So they're a fun team to watch, and I think they are probably frustrated. They're not on a 5-game win streak, but like I said, they're right there. They're right there to be able to win those games, and winning becomes a habit. Trying to figure out how to win late game is tough to do. So hopefully they start stealing some of those.
All right, Cody. We'll take a break. We're going to come back. A couple more things I want to get your thoughts on, and then we'll get our award winners for this week, and then we'll get stuck into a preview for round 8 in the NBL, Cody.
Me. He'll make it for sure. That's why I backed him on Tap Touch.
You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Imagine what you could be buying instead.
Okay, I'm back here with Cody Ellis on Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle. Before we get to our award winners, Cody, and I think you'll be very happy with the Galen winner from Simon Mitchell for this week, but a couple more players I want to get your thoughts on. Jacob Wiley at the Adelaide 36ers.
Yep.
You were rightfully very excited when they decided to bring him back based on what we saw from him in his first stint in the 36ers, but it's not quite working out right now. I want to get your thoughts on why, because we didn't see him at all in the second half in Perth, and officially the line was that he was sick from CJ Bruton. I'm not sold on that. I don't know any more than that, but he certainly didn't come back out with the team. And then he barely played in the second half against Tasmania, didn't play in the fourth quarter at all. What's going on with Jacob?
Yeah, I'm not sure. The Perth one's interesting because I noticed on the broadcast watching that he didn't come out of halftime, but he came out probably near the end of the third, went to the bench, spoke to someone, and then kind of walked back to the locker room. So I'm not sure what was going on there.
I guess if you were sick, that makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, a little bit. But if you crook, then I don't know why he would have come back out. Whether it was, I'm not sure. And look, we're probably reading way too much into this. He was probably just sick as a dog. And
maybe, but then to not play at all the second half of next week, makes it a little bit interesting.
Yeah, it is a bit interesting, right? And I don't know, he's that energy guy for them, and I think he's been good in spurts, but he's not the same Wiley that we saw in that first stint, right? And whether that's from him or whether that's just the league's gotten that much better. And
well, I mean, physically he still looks the same player, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. So I'm not sure. And Adelaide's an interesting one because, again, I'm not sure what their identity is and what their systems are, because they seem to change from game to game.
And we thought they'd figured it out when they had that win against Perth and they went to Isaac inside. They just brought in DJ, but they've been really poor since.
They've just been all over the place, and I'm not sure what's going on. So, yeah, CJ seems to be going to Toei Smith-Milner a lot more in recent times.
Well, and he's the one that's probably playing ahead of Jacob, isn't he?
Yeah, so, because, I mean, Isaac's still playing, but, I mean, he's obviously getting frustrated, and you can see that. He gets, visually frustrated, and rightfully so. I mean, look, the games have been successful. He's been
when he gets the ball.
Main caveat. Exactly. Him and DJ in pick and rolls, or feed Isaac down low, or in the short corner and let him go to work. He's such a good passer, and he's a willing passer. And his presence on putting pressure on the rim just changes that team. It opens up guys like DJ. So I'm not sure. Back to the point of Wiley, sorry. It went off a bit of a tangent there. But look, I'm not sure what's going on, and whether, CJ's just kind of lost a bit of trust in him late game, and, if he's not kind of giving what CJ expected, then, he's kind of fallen out of the rotation late in games. And look, Adelaide struggle because they don't have a lot of shooting.
No, they don't.
Right? And you put Wiley out there and he can't shoot outside the paint.
Especially with Trakel out as well.
Yeah, which, maybe that's why Toei Smith-Milner's playing a bit more, because he can shoot the absolute piss out of the ball. So, I'm not sure. They seem very lost. They don't seem to have an identity right now on what their go-to is. And you're right, with Kel out, it's tough, because I think the ball went through him a lot when they were being successful. So I'm sure he's frustrated. I'm sure it's going to be interesting to see how they go moving forward.
One more import I want to get your thoughts on. Josh Roberts at the Taipans. So they're not at full strength right now. No. They were again missing Pat Miller and Bobby Clintman. So I feel like Josh is probably that role Clinton plays. So there was a chance there for him to play more against the Hawks, but he only played 4 minutes and zeros right across the board. He didn't have a single stat in any category. If you're a young guy deep on the bench, you're there for opportunities and to bide your time. When you're an import, you're not in that same situation. No. I mean, this is a strange one.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what's going on with it, right? I mean, look, he hasn't come out and lit the world on fire by any stretch of the imagination when he has gotten opportunity. No. So, like I said, 4 minutes, you got to come up with some sort of stat, especially as an import, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm not sure what's going on and whether he sticks around for much longer because it's kind of just seems to be
it's hurting his stocks moving forward, isn't it?
Very much so. Very much so. Whether he opts to move on or they opt to move on from him or what the deal is. But, yeah, he's riding the pine as import is something that you don't see too often.
You don't. All right, Cody. Let's get to... I'm looking forward to getting your thoughts on this. So Simon Mitchell's been picking our winner of the Galen as the best team man across the NBL for this season, and he couldn't go past the throwdown on Sunday, and he couldn't go past Rob Lowe. Yep. So back in the lineup because of the injuries at Melbourne, and this is why he stuck around and why you suggested he would stay in Melbourne, because it's not very often you're at full strength. So there's always going to be chances for him to pop in and play, and he was fantastic. He was great defensively, and especially against Big Sauce, he did a great job, but 20 minutes, 7 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. He's the Galen winner for this week, and I'm sure you couldn't be happier.
Oh, absolutely. It's my guy right there. So, Simon's done a very good job picking Rob for this, and we've had some back and forths over Twitter, or X, whatever you want to call it. Still calling it Twitter, sorry. About Rob and how important he is for this Melbourne team right now. And like you said, we saw it on the weekend. He hasn't played for a few weeks now, and comes in and first game back, he's super impactful, and 20 minutes out on the floor, as an injury replacement, and to have not played in a few weeks is huge. And look, credit to him. He's been unbelievable, and he's really proving that he's still good enough to play in this league and be impactful for a championship caliber team. And he's one of the smarter players going around, and it really shows. And he just does all the little things for Melbourne. He doesn't need to go out and try score 20 points. He finds guys like Goulding, and he sets good screens, and he rolls, and he gets his hand on the rebound. Whether he comes up with it or not, he gets a hand on it, or he's at least putting pressure on the rim. And he's found a perfect situation in Melbourne for him to be successful.
Here's what Simon said about why he picked him as well, Cody. I'm just so impressed with his ability to play whatever role he's been thrown at Melbourne United this year. 20 minutes, 7 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and on the floor for 2 key runs at the end of the second and down the stretch. Whether in straight clothes awaiting his next game or playing key minutes off the bench, he's always just ready and contributing. Exemplifies a winner.
Yep. I love it. Describes Rob to a T right there.
There you go. So our other awards, Cody, then we'll get to our preview of round 8. Matty Knight's Player of the Year votes in his award. Bryce Cotton 5, Bull Kowal 4, Chris Goulding 3, Joe Lawala-Chul 2, Jalen Adams 1. Again, it's tough to condense these guys into a 5-4-3-2-1, but happy with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think, it's tough. Maybe Adams could have slotted up in front of Lawala-Chul, maybe, but bit of a flip of the coin there. Look, I think that's pretty spot on. Those guys all had major impacts for their teams this round, and look, he's knocked it on the head pretty well there, I reckon.
And then Damien Martin's Best Defensive Player votes: Bull Kowal, Rob Lowe, DJ Hogue. Anyone else stand out that he missed?
Oh, look.
So sometimes it's hard to stand out defensively, isn't it?
It is. Unless you know what you're looking for, and as just a common fan watching, it is tough to understand, impacts defensively, right? Look, I think those guys were unbelievable, and you're right, Rob was unbelievable on Big Sauce and did a really good job. And, DJ Hogue kind of flies under the radar defensively. I think his length and his smarts are really good on the defensive end for the Kings, and we know what Bull Kowal brings to the Taipans in the league, so can't argue with Damo.
Hard to imagine that it's round 8 in the NBL already, Cody. This preview thanks to Tab Touch, and we've been trying to pick some winners, and our exclusives that pop up on the Tab Touch app and at tabtouch.com.au. You had some good success last week, Cody.
Yeah, I think it was 2 out of the 3 we got that came off, and I think the one that fell short was only a rebound or 2 short of coming off as well. So, look, trying to find you guys some winners, and I'm not betting on them because if I bet on them, they won't come off. So
jinx them.
You guys are welcome.
Okay, so check those out and check out the odds for each of these games as they get closer. Doubleheader on Thursday night, Cody. This is a big game for both teams for different reasons, as we talked about. Tasmania Jack Jumpers, I feel like they're still trying to find their full identity, but their best is still very good. The New Zealand Breakers, they've had a week now almost to prepare for this game, and they need to respond.
Yeah, look, I think that it's a must-win for both teams. Tassie kind of need to right their ship a little bit. They went through a bit of a spurt in round, I think it was 3 or 4, maybe across the 2, where they looked unbelievable.
Yes.
They looked really, really good. And then they've kind of had a bit of a bumpy road since. And, we'll get one that they probably should get and then probably drop one that they should have gotten and then take it to a team that, like a Melbourne, take it to them and then kind of fall short against a couple of the lower teams and they've really got to find their identity a little bit and kind of find a bit of a rhythm. New Zealand, I mean, we went in depth into New Zealand. It's a must-win for them. If they lose this one and then fall short against Illawarra on Sunday, then that's their season done. Pretty close. So
they'll be 2-8.
Yeah. Look, this one's huge for them, and I think, look, I can't see them beating Tassie. I think Tassie get this one. Hopefully it's a fun game to watch because there's a lot of talent on the floor there.
Next up on Thursday, Perth Wildcats and the Cairns Taipans. So the Wildcats are in form now. The Taipans, let's hope they're at full strength. Let's hope Clintman and Pat Miller both are available for this game because they're a very different team when they're at full strength. But rematch of the play-in game, I think it was last year. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. And fingers crossed the Cairns are as full strength as they can be. Because, different team when they're like that. So, look, Perth are playing really well. They're starting to figure it out. I do think they continue that. Cairns are going to throw some different stuff at them, though. I think 40 is one of the masterminds of the league in junking it up and figuring out how to be successful defensively against certain teams. And it's going to be a real test for Riley and his crew there. So, I think Perth get it, but I reckon Cairns are going to really push them.
Thoughts on Keanu Pinder playing against his old team for the first time?
Yeah, it'll be an interesting one, right? It's going to be interesting to see if he tries that bit too hard. I hope he doesn't. I hope he just lets the game come to him, and because he's been really good for them throughout the whole year, even when they were struggling a bit. He was kind of that one guy that was really solid for him and kind of gave him the same thing week in and week out. So, yeah, it'll be interesting, and I'm sure 40's got some stuff ready to throw at Keanu and see what happens.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because he knew how to get the best out of him. Yes. I wonder if he also knows how to try to plot his downfall. Speaking of former players against their old teams, Friday night, standalone game. If this isn't a sellout at the Adelaide Entertainment Centre, there never will be. So the 36ers are hosting the Southeast Melbourne Phoenix, and Daniel Johnson, with his number 21 up in the rafters, coming to play against his old team.
It doesn't really make sense, does it? No. It's pretty wild. So, look, that's going to be a fun one. And I'm hoping DJ gets a fair bit of tick and is successful. Because, look, I think it's pretty crazy that, he's been available and no one else has really picked him up. So, Southeast need to win this one after dropping the one against Melbourne last week to right their ship a bit. Adelaide, again, still trying to find their identity. So, I think the Phoenix get this one, but it's going to be fun to see DJ back out on the court on his old stomping grounds where he's been so dominant for so long.
What sort of reception do you imagine him getting? It wasn't his choice to leave. Do you think he gets a very positive reaction, similar to what Mitch Norton got back in Perth?
Yeah, look, I think so. I think the Adelaide fans are fairly switched on. They're a fairly smart crowd. So, look, I would hope that they give him a pretty warm welcome.
What about for DJ? How would he feel going back there, knowing that in an ideal world he would be still playing in an Adelaide jersey?
Yeah, all kinds of emotions, I'm sure.
He still lives in Adelaide.
Yeah, a bit bittersweet, I'm sure. But I think it'll be fun for him, and I think he'll come out with a bit of a point to prove.
Double headers across the weekend. So starting on Saturday, both teams backing up after playing Thursday night. So the Cairns Taipans at home to the Tasmania Jack Jumpers.
Tough turnaround for both teams, playing on Thursday and then coming back to Saturday. But yeah, look, hopefully it's a bit better quality than last Saturday's games. But look, I reckon Tassie get that one and have a big weekend and kind of get their season back on track.
Then second up, Brisbane Bullets, so they'll be fresh against the Perth Wildcats, who won't be, having played Thursday night. But the Bullets, chance to get Shannon Scott back, but I get the feeling that he'll probably wait till after the fever break. That would make sense with his hamstring, and possibly without Tyrell Harrison, you would have to assume as well. But this will be a good one too, because a couple of weeks ago, the Bullets pulled off a shock win in Perth.
Yeah, they did, and not too much of a shock win now that Brisbane are playing the way they're playing. But this is going to be a good one, and this is going to really test both teams, I think. Seeing Ty out again really sucks. He just can't catch a break either. He's one of those guys that just constantly seems to be injured, and it's just always something little that keeps him out for big chunks of time, which is frustrating for him, I'm sure, because he's been playing some really good ball. So, look, I reckon Brisbane get this one.
I feel bad too, because it was only a week ago that I asked him how good does it feel to be healthy again. A couple of days later, he comes out and hurts his calf.
Yeah, not good. But no, look, I think Brizzy get this one. Perth are going to push them for sure. They're playing some good ball.
Less than the worst on Sunday with these two games on paper, Cody. The two bottom teams first up, the New Zealand Breakers and the Illawarra Hawks. I'm not sure if I can recommend tuning in, but both teams need a win, it's fair to say.
Well, they certainly do, and this is one where all the pressure in the world is going to be on New Zealand.
Yes.
Hawks are going to come in with a free swing, and they're going to have a week full of training under Tatum, and it's going to be interesting to see what they come out and do. New Zealand have to get this. That's pretty much it. They have to win this if they want to keep their season alive. And look, I think they do come out and get it, just purely for the fact I think there's that bit more talent there and probably a little bit more discipline than what the Hawks have shown. But the Hawks are going to push them, I reckon, because again, like I said, they're going to come out, play free, and just go out and hoop. So, look, I do think New Zealand get it there.
We didn't get to the main event, so couldn't possibly be a better way to head into the fever break than this game to close the round in this first part of the NBL season. We've got the top two teams, Melbourne United and the Sydney Kings. You almost don't need to say anything to hype it up.
Not really.
It almost sells itself, but what are you expecting?
Oh, yeah, look, a really good battle. I think this is going to be a lot of fun to watch, and I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, look, I think it's a tough one. This is a bit of a flip of the coin for me. I reckon that United probably just have that little bit more talent, and if their young guys can step up and do what they've been doing, then I don't see why United don't win this one. But again, they've got to figure out how to stop Sydney's runs. So it's going to be a big defensive game for Melbourne. If they can figure it out on that end, then I reckon they get up.
Can't wait for that. And we'll come back next week to talk about it all, Cody. It's been a big show, a lot to get through, good and bad, of the NBL world this week. And looking forward to this weekend. Of course, head to Hoop 7 and check out all of your basketball merchandise and shoes if you need anything. If you're in Perth, check out the store on Murray Street. If you're anywhere else, go to hoop7.com.au and head to Tab Touch as well, Cody, and we'll try to help you find a winner. That's it from me for this week, and I'll leave you with the final word.
Yeah, look, lots of good games this weekend, and always fun to have 7 games in a round, so looking forward to it, mate.
He'll make it for sure. Now that's why I backed him on Tab Touch.
Hey, Luke!
Yes, Gene Simmons?
He's probably the best when it comes to this stuff!
Thanks, Gene.
You've got the touch. You got the touch. You got the power. Got the touch? Choose Tap Touch. Better your bet. Download the app today.
Chances are you're about to lose. For free and confidential support, call 1-800-858-858 or visit gamblinghelponline.org.au.